Cricket legend Basil Butcher's final years revealed, the untold story of a forgotten hero's quiet end. Basil Butcher was one of cricket's most elegant batsmen, a man who graced the game with style and dignity for over a decade. But unlike many cricket legends whose final chapters are filled with honors and recognition, Butcher's later years tell a different story, one of quiet struggle, far from the Caribbean islands where he once was a hero, ending his days in a Florida hospital room after a long battle with illness. Basil Butcher died on Monday in Florida following a long illness, aged 86. He played 44 tests between 1958 and 1969, scoring 3,104 runs, and was named one of Wisden's Cricketers of the Year in 1970. But the man who once stood alongside legends, like Garfield Sobers, Clive Lloyd, and Wes Hall, spent his final years thousands of miles away from the Caribbean, largely forgotten by a new generation of cricket fans. Born in Georgetown, Guyana, Basil Fitzherbert Butcher was special from the very beginning. He was the first cricketer of Amerindian descent to represent the West Indies, breaking barriers in a sport that was still finding its identity in the post-colonial Caribbean. His journey to cricket greatness wasn't easy, coming from a background where opportunities were limited and dreams often seemed impossible. In the 1950s, cricket was the king of Caribbean sports, but it was still dominated by players from certain social circles. Butcher's rise through the ranks was remarkable not just because of his talent, but because of what he represented. He showed that cricket excellence could come from any background, any community, any part of the diverse Caribbean landscape. When he first put on the maroon cap of the West Indies, he carried the hopes of many who had never seen someone like them playing at the highest level. Butcher made his West Indies debut during the team's 1958-59 tour of India. This was during an exciting time for West Indies cricket, as they were beginning to establish themselves as a major force in world cricket. Butcher fit perfectly into this emerging powerhouse, bringing a classical batting style that was both effective and beautiful to watch. His technique was textbook perfect, his temperament was ideal for Test cricket, and his consistency made him invaluable to his team. Throughout the 1960s, Butcher was a key member of some of the greatest West Indies teams ever assembled. He played alongside Garfield Sobers, who many consider the greatest all-rounder in cricket history. He shared dressing rooms with fast bowlers, like Wes Hall and Charlie Griffith, who terrorized batsmen around the world. He was part of the generation that transformed West Indies cricket from a collection of talented individuals into a disciplined, world-beating unit. He scored 3,104 runs at an average of 43.11, with 7 centuries and 16 50s during his Test career. These numbers might not seem spectacular by today's standards, but in the 1960s, when pitches were often difficult and bowling attacks were fierce, maintaining an average above 43 was a sign of true class. Butcher was known for his ability to play long innings to anchor the batting when quick runs were needed, and to perform under pressure when his team needed him most. One of the most famous moments in Butcher's career came during a crucial Test match against England. Needing 303 to square the series, West Indies seemed set fair at 219 for 3, with Butcher on 91, but he was given out caught behind off Derek Underwood, and after Sobers fell for a duck, they ended up 30 short. His teammates were sure Butcher hadn't hit it, but he was gracious in defeat, saying simply, "I was out." This response showed the character of the man. Gracious in defeat, accepting of decisions even when they went against him, and always putting the dignity of the game above personal grievances. He was named one of Wisden's Cricketers of the Year in 1970, recognition that came after his playing career had ended. This honor from cricket's most respected publication confirmed what those who watched him play already knew, that Basil Butcher belonged among cricket's elite performers. The Wisden recognition meant his name would be forever linked with cricket's greatest players, ensuring his place in the game's history books. But cricket careers, even successful ones, eventually end. When Butcher retired from international cricket in 1969, he was still only in his early 30s. Like many cricketers of his era, he faced the challenge of building a life after cricket without the financial security that modern players enjoy. The 1960s were a time when even international cricketers earned modest amounts from the game. Most players needed to find other careers to support their families once their playing days were over. Butcher eventually settled in the United States, far from the Caribbean islands where he had been a hero. This move, while perhaps necessary, for economic reasons, meant that he gradually faded from the public consciousness in the West Indies. New generations of cricket fans grew up without seeing him play, and his achievements became part of cricket history rather than living memory. The transition from cricket hero to ordinary citizen is always difficult, but it was particularly challenging for players of Butcher's generation. There were no television commentary opportunities, no coaching positions with big salaries, no endorsement deals or appearance fees. Former international cricketers often struggled to find their place in a world that had moved on from their moment of glory. Living in Florida meant Butcher was thousands of miles away from the cricket grounds where he had made his name. While the Caribbean cricket community continued to celebrate new heroes and relive old glories, Butcher was building a quiet life in America. He had his family around him, but he was largely disconnected from the sport that had defined his youth and made him famous. The distance wasn't just geographical. Cricket was changing rapidly during the 1970s and 1980s, with new formats, bigger money, and different styles of play. The elegant, classical batting that had been Butcher's strength was giving way to more aggressive, powerful approaches. Players like Viv Richards were redefining what it meant to be a West Indies batsman. While Butcher's contributions were still respected by those who knew cricket history, he was no longer part of the conversation about current cricket. As the years passed, Butcher's health began to decline. He battled illness for a considerable time, a private struggle fought away from the spotlight that had once followed his cricket career. This long illness was challenging not just physically, but emotionally. For someone who had been fit and athletic throughout his life, the gradual loss of health must have been particularly difficult to accept. His family provided support during these difficult years. His son, in particular, stayed close to his father as his condition worsened. But the cricket community that had once celebrated Butcher's achievements was largely unaware of his struggles. The man who had once been front-page news in Caribbean newspapers was now fighting his toughest battle in private. The illness that eventually claimed his life was a lengthy one, requiring extended medical care. Butcher spent considerable time in hospitals and care facilities, places that were very different from the cricket grounds where he had once been a hero. Instead of the roar of crowds and the crack of bat on ball, his final years were filled with medical appointments, treatments, and the quiet struggle of someone whose body was failing him. When Butcher died in December 2019, the news was first shared through social media. His son announced his father's passing on Facebook, a simple post that marked the end of a remarkable life. There was something both modern and poignant about this, one of cricket's classical batsmen being remembered first through a Facebook post, shared in the digital age that was so different from the world where he had made his name. The cricket world's reaction to his death showed how much respect he still commanded, even among those who had never seen him play. Cricket West Indies issued official statements acknowledging his contributions. Former teammates shared memories of playing alongside him. Cricket historians reminded younger fans of his achievements and his place in West Indies cricket history. Clive Lloyd, who had played with and against Butcher, called him Mr. Dependable of the Golden Era. This tribute captured something essential about Butcher's career. He wasn't the most flamboyant player or the one who grabbed headlines, but he was the player his teammates could count on when the situation was difficult and runs were desperately needed. The tributes that followed painted a picture of a man who had been much more than just a good batsman. Teammates remembered his quiet leadership, his professionalism, and his dedication to the team. Opponents recalled his sportsmanship and his respect for the game. These qualities, while perhaps not making headlines during his playing career, became his lasting legacy. Butcher's story reflects broader truths about how we remember sporting heroes. Cricket has produced thousands of talented players over the decades, but only a select few remain household names for generations. Many excellent cricketers, players who gave their best years to the game and achieved significant success, gradually fade from collective consciousness as new stars emerge and capture public attention. The fact that Butcher spent his final decades in Florida rather than the Caribbean adds another dimension to his story. Many Caribbean cricketers of his generation found better economic opportunities in North America after their playing careers ended. While this was often the practical choice for their families, it also meant they became disconnected from the cricket communities where they had once been celebrated. His death marked the end of an era in West Indies cricket. Butcher was part of the generation that established the West Indies as a cricket superpower, laying the foundation for the dominance that would follow in the 1970s and 1980s. Players like Viv Richards, Malcolm Marshall, and Michael Holding built on the work done by Butcher and his contemporaries, but without that earlier generation's contributions, the later success might never have happened. The circumstances surrounding his final years highlight the challenges faced by athletes from earlier eras. Modern cricketers retire with substantial savings, pension plans, and ongoing opportunities in cricket-related careers. Players from Butcher's time often struggled financially after retirement, forcing them to start new careers in unfamiliar fields, sometimes in foreign countries far from the places where they had been heroes. There's also something telling about how quietly his illness and death occurred. In today's social media age, the health struggles of former sports stars often become public knowledge, with updates shared regularly and support flowing from fans around the world. Butcher's battle was largely private, known mainly to his family and close friends. This privacy was perhaps what he preferred, but it also meant that many who would have wanted to show support or pay their respects never had the opportunity. The contrast between his cricket career and his final years is striking. Where his playing days had been public, celebrated, and shared with millions of fans across the Caribbean and beyond, his final chapter was quiet, private, and largely unnoticed by the broader cricket world. The man who had once been cheered by thousands spent his last years in the company of family and medical staff, far from the cricket grounds where his name had once been chanted. Yet perhaps there's something appropriate about this contrast. Butcher had always been a modest, dignified player who preferred to let his bat do the talking rather than seek attention through controversy or dramatic gestures. He represented an older school of cricket where sportsmanship and quiet professionalism were valued as highly as runs and averages. In that sense, a peaceful end surrounded by family rather than media attention might have been exactly what he would have chosen. His legacy lives on not in dramatic stories or controversial incidents, but in the record books and in the memories of those fortunate enough to have seen him play. He proved that cricket excellence could emerge from any background, that dignity and professionalism were as important as technical skill, and that representing your country was both an honor and a responsibility to be taken seriously. The story of Basil Butcher reminds us that behind every sporting statistic is a human being with a complete life story. His cricket career, impressive as it was, represented just one chapter in a longer story that included family, challenges, health struggles, and ultimately a quiet end, far from the applause that had once followed his batting. His journey from Georgetown to international stardom to a Florida hospital room captures both the glory and the eventual solitude that can define an athlete's complete story. Subscribe to discover more untold stories of cricket legends whose final chapters reveal the hidden costs of sporting fame.